We use them everywhere. We use them every day. We're constantly on them. We use them too much.
They're a key role in communication. They've changed our world. We have approximately 6,000 devices, of which 2,700 are unique. It does look much like a toilet. Design just went wild.
I remember getting my first mobile phone.
And then we get on to, as I've heard a few people say, dvb-h. We want to inspire the designers and engineers of the future.
When I'm walking down the mean streets of South London, I put my phone in my pocket.
Press subscribe now.
I am thrilled to hand over to Wren, who's going to talk about the history of mobile phones and how they've influenced our world of media today. So over to Wren.
Thank you. So, good evening everybody. I'm Wren. I'm a third year media technology student at the University of Salford on a course that as of last week no longer exists. So, you know, I am limited edition. I am also a trustee of the Mobile Phone Museum, which is a UK-based charity set up to preserve the history, the design and the general thing of the anonymous rectangle you all have in your pockets that's completely changed our lives. So a bit of a background on the Mobile Phone Museum. It was founded and curated by two industry veterans, Ben Wood, my dad, and Matt Chatterley, who has had a long industry in BT and things. And they've collected devices since the early 1990s. My dad has told me stories when he used to work at Vodafone that the next generation of mobile phones would come out and they'd throw the old ones in a skip. Because who cares, the next generation is here, well hey. And he's like, well, somebody's got to preserve that. Somebody's got to take that to a point where this could be useful for future generations because stuff will get lost and stuff will get forgotten. We have approximately 6,000 devices, of which 2,700 are unique, which is a lot. And we believe it's one of the most comprehensive collections of mobile phones in the world. Feel free to dispute that. We have a very experienced team of directors and trustees who have lots of experience in running a charity, so we're really placed to kind of keep it going. So as a museum, we have 5 key aims, and as a charity as well. The first is to look at the design diversity. Phones have changed a lot in the last 40 years, and it's one that we wanted to preserve the design and a lot of effort that goes into something that isn't a black rectangle. We want to preserve them because they've become a part of social history. They're a key role in communication. They've changed our world. We also want to capture historical facts because, to be blunt, people aren't going to be around forever. We need to preserve that in either a living history, either by recording their stories or writing it down and making sure that knowledge doesn't get forgotten. And all the funny anecdotes about this didn't work first time and all the stuff that doesn't get written down in journals, the stuff that's actually social history. We want to take the museum into the real world for exhibitions for the public and display these wonderful devices and go, this is what we're doing. And finally, most importantly, we want to educate this for the next generation. We want to go and actually show kids where it's come from. And following on from that, we do a number of workshops in schools, and I've given one to Scouts, as you can see at the end. And kids are just blown away at the history of this little tiny communications thing in their pocket. We want to inspire the designers and engineers of the future, especially those in underrepresented groups. The Mobile Phone Museum was conceived during the pandemic, which is a great potential for a virtual museum. So mobilephonemuseum.com, we have a wonderful site that has spent many hours of my life testing and breaking. And yeah, we're mobilephonemuseum.com. We also, as of last year, have a physical exhibition. It is a bit far. It's in PK Porthcurno in Cornwall, which is the Museum of Communications. We have an exhibition there until October 2024. If you're interested in going, talk to me. We have a discount code. But also, it's the first time the museum has been shown to the public. Watch this space, though. We're working on other things. We have over 500 studio quality images of devices, some of which haven't even seen the public eye before. We have phones that say, do not take photos of, but you know, 20 years ago, so who cares? And the catalogue allows you to scroll through and see your favorite phone and find your first phone. You will lose hours of your workday. I'm not going to apologize. Most phones have a short write-up, others have videos. There's a few adverts I'll talk to. I didn't want to play them out tonight because we're streaming and didn't want to get Paul's lovely live stream or YouTube channel taken down. But we are trying to collate all the collateral around mobile phones and everything when they're released. We also have a most wanted page. Dig through your drawers, get in touch. These are ones that we can't find or are prohibitively expensive or ones that there just wasn't a lot made of. So that's kind of what we're looking for. So that's enough about the museum and a bit of an introduction. Let's talk about how the Mobile Phone Museum has impacted our lives as we go forward. Over the last 40 years, I should say. It really has become the all-in-one device. It's replaced iPods, games consoles, radios, calculators, sat-navs, even a torch. More physical objects, so maps, notepads, newspapers, books, diaries are all done on your phone. Media devices, have completely changed. Nobody carries a separate camera, to a point. Photo albums, TVs, even remotes. You don't actually need much beyond a device. Transport has been timekeeping has changed. Clocks, alarms, stopwatches, timers is all done on your phone. Transport has been revolutionized. I mean, how many of you used an e-ticket to get here? Or you've gone to board a flight and checked in on your phone and got a digital boarding pass? And physical timetables just aren't a thing anymore. You just look, oh, when's the next train? Oh, 5 minutes from Oxford Circus. Wallets have gotten much slimmer. Digital payments is a huge one. Being able to just tap and pay on your phone has really changed the way that we live, we shop, and we work. And the fact that Apple Pay has this ridiculous limit of 10 grand in one transaction. We're not quite in Kensington, but... and following on, some institutions are fully mobile. My bank doesn't have any branches. I just go to an app and get in touch with support. And in my experience, that's kind of been better. I've recently had to do some paperwork with NatWest. They say, visit your branch. Oh, by the way, we're open 9:30 till 12 on Tuesdays. Thanks. Good luck, I guess. At least I'm a student. And how could we forget the humble phone box and the landline phone are all being replaced. The fact that you can get a landline phone number on your mobile phone via SIP or SIP to SIM or whatever. So let's throw ourselves back in time to the 1980s where you have transportable phones. We do have a VT1, but I'll be honest, it's very heavy and it's a lot of work to get it to central London, so you'll have to forgive me. But we've got a few devices that were basically, you just pick them up and go. The Vodafone VT1, the Motorola 5000X, and they were ones that you put over your shoulder and carried. But they were mobile phones. And thinking back to the first phone call, a man called Martin Cooper, who I've been lucky enough to meet, introduced the Dynatac phone at a press conference in New York City in 1973. And he placed the first public telephone call to his rival at AT&T and basically said, I'm calling you from a portable phone, which, as I've done some research, that seems to be quite common with engineers. Oh, I'm first to do this, so you ring your competitor. And he's holding the phone there, it took a further 9 years. So it went from 1973, it took until 1984 for the phone to actually be released to the public. We're lucky enough to have it signed by him, and it was, over time, known as the brick phone. It very much is a brick. We take this into schools and put a brick next to it to go, it was a brick. It's also funny, I was doing some research on yuppies, which is a very 1990s term, and there was a newspaper article where people with a paper with the journalist was asking, aren't you worried about it being stolen? And I went, no, it's heavy enough, you just, deal with it. So there we go. And then we move on to the first thing that we found that was a bit of buried mobile history, the first pocketable mobile phone. Now, can I have a volunteer with a top shirt pocket? Ed, I'm sure you did. Now, this actually is pocketable.
Oh, there we go. It is.
Which is just...
Not sure
crazy.
I in my pocket.
No, but it was pocketable. It's a man called Nils Martinson, and we went to see him and did a video, and he was telling this story of how there were Japanese engineers going through the bins at his engineering lab to try and find information out about this phone, which is just crazy. And then we move forward the evolution, 1990s, from analog to digital. So we went from TACs, amps, NMT, over to GSM and CDMA, which really meant we could use the spectrum more efficiently because analog technology was huge with guard bands and everything. It used a lot of spectrum that we kind of figured out that's actually kind of valuable. We might want to use that for other stuff. And then we go to 3rd of December 1992, where the short message service, or SMS, was sent on a commercial network. It was carried out on Vodafone UK, and it was received on an Orbitel 901, the first message being Merry Christmas. And it really showed we went from the transition of voice to visual. People were sending text. People were looking at their phone instead of picking it up and talking to people. And then Vodafone sold it as an NFT. I don't get it either. So camera phones really changed the market. That was one that where you started to have a camera in a phone. Why would you want that? On the far side here, the orange video phone is a prototype that used high-speed switched packet data, which is some odd strain of 2G to do video calls, which just, there's a lot of very innovative patents that went quite well with that. And the first, well, the J phone here is what the Mobile Phone Museum believes is the first camera phone. You'll notice I say that a lot because all of these first are very hotly debated. Everyone is always first. Everyone always was the first to market, had the first this, had the first that. But we believe it was the first one. And they had initially, they went to the biggest operator in Japan, NTT Docomo, and they went, well, we're not going to stock it because we don't think the market needs a camera phone. We're not interested. So they went to J-Phone instead, who said, the marketing department went, right, we will place an order. We want 10,000 units, 2,000 with the camera in, and 8,000 without, because we don't believe that it will sell. Well, the camera phone flew off the shelves, and the original variant was sitting there on the shelves and didn't sell. And then you have the T68i Sony Ericsson, which was the first kind of one that hit the consumer market with a clip-on camera at the bottom. And then the N95, which was just the multimedia device. The 808 PureView down the end, which had a 41 megapixel sensor, but a proper 41 megapixel, not whatever the current manufacturers are claiming. And it's still actually coveted by some camera enthusiasts now as a very good phone. And then the Samsung S4 zoom with 10 times optical zoom. They basically thought, yeah, sure, that can be a camera. But what's impressive now is a lot of you will have 10 times optical zoom in the back of your phone because they've managed to shrink the technology down. And it really changed the sharing of media and how you capture and share. It was hold it up and take a photo instead of, wait, let me get my camera out. We then move on to the smartphone story, which is where it starts getting, the word smartphone starts getting thrown around. It starts with the IBM Simon, which predates the term. So IBM never referred to this as a smartphone. It was a PDA and seen as kind of an accessory to the phone, but then, like the Palm Pilot, but then IBM brought this all together as one device. The next one is the Motorola Map phone, which was never commercially available, but we believe it was the first mobile phone type device that had GPS built in. So very much made the fact that now if you're going somewhere, you just pull up Google Maps and you expect it to know where you are. And having been with friends who haven't been to London, them just being able to look at Google Maps and know where they're going, but then it not working, you realize how much you rely on it. Then you have the Nokia Communicator, which actually was 28 years old last week, just to date some of you forward. And they had a huge influence because it was this device that opened up and you could do everything. I mean, there's stories of people doing telnet over to fix prod infrastructure, so you know. And then the next device is the Ericsson R380S, which we believe was the first phone to actually use the word smartphone in their marketing material and coin that as a term. And then there's the Microsoft Avenger, which is a very rare prototype that we had. That was the foundation for Windows Phone, which we know is a huge market leader. And it really shaped the journey of the smartphone. And then the Nokia 7650 at the end, that introduced Symbian, which was Nokia's dominant operating system at the time, and really did shape the market. Symbian was the dominant market share for a good few years, and is still used today on their feature phones. Then we get into the wild years, which is the 2000s, where all sorts of stuff was brought up. I mean, design just went wild because you could. I don't want to know what was in the engineering departments, but best left unspoken. Fashion played a very important role. The mobile phone became the fashion accessory. You know, a good example is Exalibri. These phones around here was actually designed, you know, it was focused exclusively on devices that could be worn. So that kind of clips on your belt. That one has a kind of lanyard type thing that you hang around your neck. And that was sold in stores like Selfridges and Fnac in France. That it was seen as an accessory, which was followed on by Vertu in the later years as a luxury market. And then there were ambitious designs like the Nokia, the puck phone, and the circular keypad. I mean, it doesn't really need words, does it? And then the VOC, Sierra Wireless VOC, and then the Siemens SK65, just to get that keypad there, of which BlackBerry was the market leader then, but it was seen that you had to have a keyboard to enter in. And then we get to more examples of how the media landscape changed and what people wanted. You know, there's all these media standards. And a good example of this was 3G when that was brought, because that was very much the mobile internet generation. This is one of the first devices, the A920 by Motorola. And 3 had a bit of a reputation at the time because it was Hutchinson Whampoa, which was out of Hong Kong. There was engineers said that the 3G stood for girls, games, and gambling because because there was adult content, there was games such as football, and that was very much that, and a lot of gambling, which is where the money came from. And then you get on to, you know, the things like the Virgin Mobile Lobster, which was made by HTC. This used DAB-IP, as far as I can figure out, which meant you're sending IP over the digital radio network for the content, but the electronic program guide was sent over 2 or 3G data. But then there was like red button content. But, you know, it was there, which was really quite interesting. They spent $2.5 million on an advertising commercial with Pamela Anderson, and then the device flopped. I think, as Paul said, it was what, an excellent radio, a good phone, and a crap TV.
No, it was a mediocre TV and a terrible phone.
Mediocre TV and a terrible phone. There you go, wrong way around. And then we get on to, as I've heard a few people say, dvb-h, which was great, and really was pushed very heavily by Nokia. They gambled on hardware and totally paid off. No, completely failed. You know, this is the 7710, which actually has like a backpack streamer, which uses pogo pins to add the streaming module to it, which is just so funny. And then we hop over to the US market, where you've got, the Korean market, where, you know, you just want to rotate your screen. The Samsung SGH Z130 rolls off the tongue. And it's one where it was seen that it was just going to go from traditional linear TV, was just going to appear on your phone. And that was what was going to happen. And to bring the media side in, when I was doing some research for this presentation, because I've tailored it to this audience, I found this wonderful presentation from BT from 2006, which is explaining why BT Movio, which is what the Virgin Media phone used, is going to be the future. And there were a few examples in this that I just want to pick out. The fact that WiMAX, handset, no known plans. So give up on that one. TDTV, which I can't even find a spec for. So if you can find one, please send it to me. The disadvantage is it's completely untested. Like, completely untested. You've got SDMB, Satellite Digital Mobile Broadcasting, I believe, which needs some testing, but someone's hacked the CA, so all the keys are out. Because, that's good. But what's interesting about 3G is it was launched by many operators with limited success. And initially I laughed. But then I took a step back and went, unicast uses a lot of data. Doing it multicast, being able to send one stream and just picking it up, is a clever way of thinking. And it relates to how we're going now about the kind of cloud native bit. In network engineers and broadcast engineers are getting in meetings, and there's completely different thinking about where it needs to go, and unifying that is great. There was one other point I picked up from this report, which is that 2/3 of pilot users indicated they would pay up to £8 a month for service on their current network. And initially, I thought this was crazy. But how much is Netflix a month? How much is Disney Plus a month? £8 a month for video streaming doesn't seem that crazy in 2006. So those are all those wonderful things, and as we know, IP ran out. IP went out in the end, but you get to the iPhone in 2007, when Steve Jobs walked on stage and said this was an iPod, an iPhone, and an internet communicator. But we at the museum really think it's remembered in like a rose-tinted glasses. The Nokia N95 outsold the iPhone until Q3 of 2008. It nearly had a year's lead where it completely outsold. And, it really is it was only 2G. It didn't have copy-paste. It didn't have an app store because Steve Jobs said web apps were the future. I agree with him now, but 2007 was a bit of a stretch, especially when it didn't support Flash. And it's just one where the N95 really was billed as the multimedia device with the dual slide multimedia controls. Do you need a minute just to... This was billed as kind of the all-in-one device, and it was very, very popular. Just need to... Yes, quick drink. And then we get on to what is billed as the sea of smartphone sameness, these grey boxes that have kind of shaped our future. And it's the dominant design in which actually, again, doing research, has become homogeneous across a lot of categories. You think washing machines, televisions, to an extent cars, have all become kind of the same blob. And it's very much happened that this is all tied together. I mean, I have put a few interesting things in there, like the Amazon Fire Phone, because, that's great. And there's a Firefox phone as well, because they poked the market and thought it would be good. And yeah, there's enough there just to show that it kind of looks the same. But there was still innovation. There was still a bit of, let's push the boundaries a bit, with two devices. The Samsung Galaxy Beam, which had an ultra-bright 15-lumen projector in the top, which, is quite fun, which kind of plays that out, and you can share the content as and when down the end. And then the Sony Xperia Play. So still playing with different input methods and having kind of the gaming side. And gaming has turned into a very big market segment, and it's one that has a lot of money thrown behind it. So maybe they were thinking in the right way. And then we get onto the 2020s, and oh, hang on. Then we that way. Sorry, my mistake. And then we get onto the 2020s with foldable devices, and this is a category that I have seen a lot grow. This is a concept image from TCL in 2019, which you look at that, it looks at that in 2019 and went, nah, that's never going to happen. But actually, those kind of devices have hit the market, and we're on our 4th, 5th generation now. You know, you've got the Samsung devices, you've got the kind of Chinese sector devices. Some of those are very, very interesting and very, very innovative, and are no thinner than your current device. And to be able to go from a little screen to unfold to effectively an iPad mini is really changing the media game. And being able to actually have foldable screens with decent content specs. I think Samsung Display are doing stuff with HDR now on a foldable display, which is just crazy. And then looking forward, 2020, 2030s and beyond, you've got the rollable phone. This was Mobile World Congress last year, where the device kind of moves up and down a bit. What's interesting is this technology was kind of tried with the Motorola Razr, the 1st generation, because the screen was plastic and it folded into the device. But this is where you're properly rolling the device. And then these were concepts from Samsung Display. So these aren't mobile devices, they're showing off the display technology. And they were very much combining the two, fold and roll, or unroll and fold, and whatever. And it really is showing the innovation, and I'm excited to show where it goes next. But where's it going to go after this? You've seen some of the stuff with Elon Musk Neuralink, but also come and tap my hand. There's an RFID chip in it. Being able to have implantable things, or even you think of the technology in an Apple Watch, that's not that big. And we're only 1 or 2 generations away from being able to have that inside you, which might make you feel a bit icky. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour through the kind of history of mobile phones and how it relates to media. Please come and hold these devices, take photos with them, be a bit gentle. They are museum exhibits after all. And they're ones where you can come take photos with them, whatever. I have a small amount of Mobile Phone Museum stickers, if you can come to me first. But also, welcome any questions. Either if you've got a device to donate, drop the hello email a message. If you've got something more general, drop me a message or find me on the Fediverse. And yeah, I'm open to any questions.
Hi, so I noticed you don't really have any information about the Japanese domestic market and their rather unique mobile phones. Does the Mobile Phone Museum have any of those devices? Do you know much about them?
Yes, so on the Phone Museum website, we have a Japan collection, such wonderful phones as the toilet phone. A lot of them haven't made the jump transcontinentally. It would be great to get a trip to Japan and spend lots of Mobile Phone Museum budget on stuff. But equally, a lot of them seem to have been lost in terms of actually sent to e-waste because, I've got an old phone, it's worthless. So kind of, but not as big a collection as we'd like. Cool, yeah.
Brilliant presentation. I was going to ask, what's the smallest phone you have? How small did they get? Because before the smartphone, there was like the drive to be smallest.
We actually have a more modern phone that's very small that is used for... yes, how do I phrase it diplomatically? It's very easy to hide, shall I say. So I don't know exactly the smallest phone, but we have ones that are just tiny, and some that you look at and go, how on earth have they crammed the technology into this?
So I heard a rumor that SMS was actually designed by engineers for engineers to send technical information. I was going to ask, so I then heard this and recounted this story to somebody who was working for Eutelsat at the time, and he said, Dan, that's absolutely true, because I was there in the room when we invented SMS, and it was entirely so we could send engineering messages to each other. So you've heard that
Yes,
before?
we have heard much the same. Yeah, we've heard much the same, and it basically was, oh, it's quite useful, we can send data over. And it's actually why it's so efficient, because it was a bit of spectrum that are like, hang on, we're sending a 20, 30 byte message. There's about, these figures are estimates, but there's about 60 bytes there. Hey, let's throw some text in.
Yeah.
So yes, that is absolutely true from what we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredible that here we are, we all text, and it was something never intended.
Yeah. It is interesting, having been to Glastonbury with 205,000 people, when the mobile phone network melts, even though they say they put in extra capacity and, you know, there's only so much you can do, an SMS will get through.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that it's a completely different network stack, which is that way.
So in reply to that, one thing that I do know is that it is apparently technically possible to deploy a Java Card SIM Toolkit applet over SMS somehow. Like you can send an applet to run on the SIM card. I know some hacker event somewhere has done this as a proof of concept, and there's a slide deck that I can find for you if you're interested.
Yes, I can second that, because I did a month of work experience at the BT Identity Technology team, and all of the mobile network updates over the SIM is just a text, but you don't see it. So SMS is used for a bit more than you think. And in answer to your Japan question, we have, if I can bring it up, some wonderful Japanese phones, including the toilet phone itself, which does look much like a toilet. So
it won the Good Design Award.
It did indeed. A Good Design Award. Japan. But yes, we have collections and everything. There's a load of them that are just crazy and wild, and the designs are just really impressive. I think a lot of the design is being forgotten, because there's a lot of people that go, you know, a lot of work goes into designing something like this and making it sleek, and we just take it for granted. Yeah?
My question's a bit chicken and egg about batteries.
Yes?
Is it the desire of the phone to be more powerful that drove the battery technology, or did they wait for the battery technology to be able to design phones around it?
I would say they go hand in hand. So battery technology has dictated the design of the mobile phone. They've always used, or tried to use, the most innovative battery technology at the time. But if you look at stuff like the transportables, the first generation, a lot of that was battery. And as batteries got smaller, phones got smaller. But then phones started using more power, so they needed more battery. It is a bit chicken and egg, but I would say they've gone hand in hand in that the battery technologies, as we've gone from, I think we even have a phone that has a lead acid battery, don't ask. And then you go from NiCad to lithium ion, you can see the shift in the history. You can sort the site by year, and you can see actually as you look through the devices, the shift, and you can go, hang on, what changed here? And although the network technology dictated that a lot, the battery technology also dictated that. And battery technology dictates our current phones as well. I mean, that's quite obvious. The fact that most of your phone's weight is probably going to be battery. And it still doesn't last a day.
Hi, great talk.
Thank
you. It. Just wondering what your favourite piece of social history relating to mobile phones is.
Oh, social history. I have not had that question before.
Is it the Kelly Rowland thing where she she pages someone with a Excel spreadsheet?
Yes, there are some very, very funny anecdotes like that. I mean, I think a lot of my influence, and a very personal answer, is the Matrix, and that kind of having the device that, you know, the FedEx envelope arrives, he rips it open, and then there's the Nokia 7110 there that is just so, that set the scene. So I guess kind of phones in that, and also the James Bond side. So we have a James Bond collection as well as Japan, and seeing phones in media and how they're used, especially when they're used right, is really interesting. Because you as broadcast engineers must also sit, much like I do, watching TV going, yeah, that's not how that works. But then actually you watch some things and go, wow, that's actually quite accurate. So a good example is Mr. Robot. You know, that is a TV series that Netflix got right because they actually hired the right people to talk to it. So when phones are used properly in media, I'd say that's what I find most interesting. It's quite clear that the research team has done the research and gone, this is how this actually works.
Cool, thank you.
So how long is it going to be before Antiques Roadshow ask you to be an expert on mobile phones?
You joke, but we genuinely think there is an opportunity. You know, there's a subset of I'd say there's about 100 in Porthcurno hand-picked, which is the kind of best of the selection. But it's so hard to narrow this thing down because every phone was first, every phone was innovative. I mean, BBC, give me a call.
I'm going to piggyback on the Antiques Roadshow question. What's the most expensive?
Most expensive? That's a very easy answer, actually. I referenced it in the talk, but there was a company called Vertu that made luxury phones. And when I say luxury, they put rhinestones in the actual device. And some of them still go for 10, 20, 30,000 purely because the actual value, to give you an idea, it was a bit like the Amex Centurion card, but on a phone. Like you would press a actual physical ruby button to get a concierge that would give you anything you wanted in the world. So the Vertu phones are definitely the most expensive in the collection.
So it's the cost of the device rather than the demand for
Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting, you know, stuff like the 5000X certainly has gone up in value. It's certainly, some of these, I would hate to put a ballpark figure, it's certainly in the mid 4 figures to get some of these. But what's interesting is some of them are worth a lot. Some of them, like an N95, is worth nothing. So it's really interesting. Exactly. So we do have people get in touch that say, oh, I've got this old phone, it's worth a lot. And we have to go back to them and say, sorry, but it's not. Mm-hmm. But then equally, we have the complete inverse. So people get in touch. So we have a very rare prototype of the VP1, which was made by Vodafone, which I think the serial number is 4 or something like that, or 7, I think. And that is worth, some of them you probably couldn't put a value on it because it is so unique. So it varies wildly across the collection, but some of them are worth a lot because of raw materials, some of them are worth a lot because of the heritage.
Nice, thank you.
So how many of them can you actually use?
That's a very interesting question, and the answer is the Mobile Phone Museum policy is we do not turn devices on because we are focused on the design, and also we have had phones that we have turned on and then we've come back 2-3 weeks later and the battery has popped and the LCD screen has gone and the keys have gone all mushy. It's a very interesting debate about what we do with them, but the main objective of the museum was the design instead of the functionality. Now, I could do a whole nother talk on the software, which is completely different, but anything that's 2G will still work because that's not going to be turned on anytime soon, turned off anytime soon.
29.
Yeah.
29, that's where it goes. It's the latest it'll be on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 3G is pretty much gone, so good luck with that. But no, a lot of them still would power up, I reckon, if we gave them the right voltage. But to preserve them, we don't turn them on.
Do you collect the charges?
For those that didn't hear, the question was, do you collect the charges? We're trying to get one of everything. We did have a VT1 with an original charger that was half the size of the phone. So yes and no. If they come with them, great. If they don't, we're not too bothered.
You mentioned landfill once. A lot of landfill is made up of mobile phones.
Yes.
I think there's been an uptick in recycling the phones and people buying, which is great. I think the Fairphone was a beautiful idea, but a flop. I just wondered what your views are on that whole area.
I disagree with you. It wasn't a flop because they're on Generation 5. The Fairphone actually was in the lineup of Sea of Smartphone sameness. And actually the new EU laws are making things more repairable. So yes, waste is a huge issue for the industry and is, in my opinion, brushed under the rug. I'm very much a right for repair advocate, and you should be able to repair your own stuff and get board level schematics for something you own. Not everyone does this. but it's very much the Fairphone is setting a good example that I wish more manufacturers would follow. But a lot of it's heading in the right direction, would be my view. And consumers are keeping their phones longer. And you think, especially iPhones, there's market research, I can actually cite this, iPhones last 7-8 years because they are handed down and handed down. Now that's very much an iPhone thing. Android is getting better, but iPhones have a very long shelf life. And you look at, when you start talking 8-10 years, it's kind of comparable to the shelf life of other home electronic goods. So it's getting better and the industry is starting to acknowledge it. Whether it's acknowledging it in the right way, my opinion is no, but that's a very good debate.
So a lot of the collection's looking at sort of legacy devices and things like that. How's the collection dealing with new devices, new releases? Are you preserving those as they come out?
We're working on it. So some manufacturers, I can't name who, but some manufacturers will just ship us the latest stuff because they know about us. That's an open invitation. Post us stuff, please. Yes and no. It comes down to a very interesting question: is what is a mobile phone and what do you put in the museum? Where is the line? You know, do we put the Palm Pilot in? Because technically it's not a phone, but it influenced the phone. Do we put pages in? Yes, no, maybe. We have a collection of all of them, but new devices, the dream is that we would come a bit like the British Library. Every book published has to go in the British Library, every phone release has to go in the Mobile Phone Museum. That's a dream, it's not happening so far, but we do our best with the connections we have. So across the management board, we have various people in the phone industry, and after 3 or 4 years, when the phone is not in mainstream circulation, we work around it. But equally, a lot of devices are not worth a lot after 3-4 years. So I'd say we're probably working on a 5-year lag of actual real-world devices, apart from a few exceptions of companies that send us them.
Cool. What about e-ink phone?
E-ink phones?
Yeah, because I read that in the US there are some group of young people that are starting using them to avoid smartphones, to get a different lifestyle.
We do have a few e-ink phones in the collection. A good example was a Russian company called there was a Russian company called Yotaphone that made kind of e-ink screen on the back, which was billed as, if you've got a train ticket or a plane ticket, you can put the device's screen on the back of the device and it's still there. E-ink, it's an interesting thing to think about. We don't have a whole lot of stuff. It's mainly been kind of e-readers and like e-paper, like the Remarkable type device.
I know there is a
but
that is just e-ink.
There is.
Okay, no.
There is a few, and there is always kind of hacking about with hardware, but it kind of hasn't taken off as much as some people would think. Bit like dvb-h. Anyway.
On that bombshell.
You're welcome.
I think we're all actually really quite geeked out on mobile phones now.
Yes.
Yeah. But I've got to say thank you so much for coming here and doing this. Wasn't that amazing? Wow. And I need to do more B-roll with all of these. Look at these devices. I mean, honestly.
Yes, please come and take photos with them.
So I brought one of these with me today, and the one I used, and to be quite honest, it's completely knackered. And this one is like out the box.
Yeah.
These weren't very hard wearing. I'd just say, because from experience. Yeah, absolutely fascinating. And obviously, mobile phones have shaped our world and shaped our media and shaped everything we do every day. I mean, I walk down the street all the time in South London, and the amount of people just walking along the street glued to their phones, and we've all done it, right? But when I'm walking down the mean streets of South London, I put my phone in my pocket. Thank you so much. It's been so great to have you here, and I think we've all had a great evening. 13, was it unlucky? I don't know. Thank you very much.
great to see the interest in the topic and the general nostalgia around how mobile phones have shaped our lives. Subscribe to Cloud Native Media, come to the next event in London, and looking forward to seeing you soon.